Aloha, welcome to Departures to Alpha Centuri, sponsored by the United Galactic Federation of Planets. My name is Merlin, and I'm your tour guide tonight. Our program name is 10 months, and specifically it's Locusts, Trumpets, and Groaning. This is a level 3 program that is a XXX, and you can also tell by the color of my shirt, a white shirt, that this is level 3. That means anyone who has a strong belief in religion, a strong belief in science, or a strong belief in our government's explanations of events should not watch. This will offend you. And as you can see behind me, we have L3 and 4, which means level 3, number 4. The first part of the program will be level 1 material, and I want to tell everybody about something that's being reported on the internet. It's called Earth Groaning. The last 4 months of 2011, I was telling everyone about ships arriving in our world. These are Victor ships, 300 feet across, and giant transports, everything from 2 miles across up to 500 miles across. And it's the giant transports that are playing havoc with our weather all over the planet. Everywhere in this world, we're either having unseasonably warm weather or we're having record snowfalls. And the scientists and the meteorologists just can't explain it. Well, it's because of the ships. They try to blame it on lows and highs and jet stream and El Nino, but no. What's going on right now is unheard of. We're having weather that we have never had. These things just don't happen. And the ships are causing it. Well, that was the end of last year, end of 2011. We're now into 2012, and now we have another phenomenon that's not seen. This one is heard. This is called Earth Groaning. All of you that have access to the internet, I encourage you to put in those 2 words and then watch some of the YouTube uploads that appear on your screen, and you will hear sounds like you have never heard before. These are rumblings and groaning sounds coming from inside our Earth that are scary. They're actually terrifying for some folks, and they'll go on from a few seconds to half an hour. And they have all kinds of strange rumbling sounds involved with them. My brother says it sounds like a ship being torn in half. Other people say it sounds like heavy metal being dragged over rocks. It's affecting people. They're becoming very concerned about what these sounds are. In fact, NBC News all this week has been running stories about dolphins up in Cape Cod that are beaching themselves. 177 dolphins have beached themselves. The scientists can't explain it. They don't know why. Well, animals can hear these sounds as well as us. As you watch some of these videos on YouTube, you'll see people's dogs and rabbits reacting to the sounds. Dolphins are intelligent species, and they can hear like we can. And more than likely, they're just as terrified of these sounds as we are. The biologists can't explain it. They've never seen so many dolphins and whales that are now beaching themselves. Well, if you think about it, animals can hear sounds just like we can, and they're frightened by these sounds as well. And on some of those videos that you can watch on YouTube, you'll see people's pets. Animals very much can hear what we're hearing. So it's not imaginary, it is real. These sounds are part of the big story. It started out with sightings last fall. Now we have sounds this winter. And as time goes by, it's going to become more and more apparent that there is something happening in 2012 that has never happened before. And that's what this program is all about. It's about evacuating 7 billion people from planet Earth. We have to get everybody out of here. And the good news is, it's going to happen. The plans are in the works, and it's going to happen. There were some folks here in the studio a few moments ago before we went on air, and we were talking about these sounds, and I mentioned it sounds sometimes like a rusty garage door being raised. Just very strange grumbling sounds. Well, after you listen to those sounds, I encourage you to go to my YouTube site, and then go to the one about earthquakes. In that video, I talk about how as our Earth gets ready to do its rotation reversal that happens later this year on December 21st, the harmonics that cause the reversal are going to become more and more apparent. And harmonics are nothing more than sound. Last spring, when I made the earthquakes video, I told people, listen for unusual sounds, and then when you hear them, put them on YouTube, and then also report them to the major media. Well, unfortunately, the networks are not covering any of this. They don't seem to want to consider what those sounds are, but they're the harmonics that are indicating that our Earth is getting ready to stop rotating counterclockwise and start rotating clockwise. So I encourage everyone to Google Earth groaning and to listen. At this point, we're going to talk about a few devices that you may never have seen before. This is an octagon. It's a two-dimensional figure that is 8-sided octagon. Then, if you take an octagon and turn it into 3 dimensions, if you give it a left and a right, forwards and backwards, and a flat, you get a octahedron. Here's an octahedron. It's got 3 octagons tied together in a 3-dimensional configuration. So instead of an octagon, it's an octahedron. Then, if you take a square and turn it into a cube, into a 3-sided figure, you get a cube. So here's a cube now. Well, what happens if you take a cube and put it inside of an octahedron? Well, what you get is a cubocatin. This is a cube, if you guys can see it right here. Here's the cube part. And there's an octahedron that is around it. Here's where we go XXX. I'm now going to talk to you about God. I'm going to talk to you about the one true God, the great I Am, the Supreme Being. This is the symbol of the one true God. Now, the reason this has to be level 3 is because humans have lots of gods. And if I mention God at the first level, the first question I get is, which God? Whose God? If it's not Allah, I lose the Muslims. If it's not Buddha, I lose the Buddhists. If it's not any of these gods, if it's not your personal God, you're not going to listen to me. So at the first level, we can't talk about God. Now here's another device. This is called a Subi neighbor. This is a Supreme Being resonator. And it's a device that certain people need to take with them whenever they travel as a form of protection. This has a cross in the center, a square cross, and then 6 square crosses around the outside. And it's a Supreme Being resonator transceiver. Now here's another device. This one's called a resonator. This is kind of a personal device that is taken on trips for people that are doing this work. And you put this in your motel room on your dresser. This will protect you at night from some of the evil forces that are very much at work in our world. We're not alone in this world. We have light and dark, which are from God. The light create, the dark destroy, but it's all part of the balance. God has both light and dark forces. A classic example of a dark force was the 10th plague on Egypt, the angel of death that killed the firstborn. That was an angel that was sent by God, but that angel destroyed. That was a dark angel. And there's always a balance. There has to be creation, there has to be destruction. And the light and dark forces belong to God. It's the good and evil forces that are created by man that we have to worry about. Those are the ones that can cause a lot more complications. Now here's another device. This is called an anactron. This is an angel-activated zymatron. It's a cross in the center with crosses around the outside, something similar to a Subi neighbor, except it's tied together at the corners. It's got 90-degree angles, and it also has rope that, or in this case it's twine, that is around the outside. And this is a personal anactron. Now, anactron means angel activated zymatron. This is actually a power device that's used by angels, and each angel has to have one of these for their own use when they're in our world. We have evil forces, and the angels can be affected by them, so the angels use anactrons. Now, I have an interesting story. In August of 2008, I wrote a dozen letters to Diane Sawyer at ABC News. At that time, she wasn't yet the anchor. She was still on Good Morning America. But I wrote her letter after letter after letter. Well, you get the idea. And I was never able to contact her. But in August of 2008, I wanted to let her know that angels were about to play a very important role in our world. The message was never delivered. Well, I built a whole set of these, but much bigger. They were 8 feet tall, and on September 29th, 2008, the angels went to work. They went after the stock market. On September 29th, 2008, the New York stock market started crashing. It went from the 14,000 level all the way down to 6,400, 5.5 months later. Panic set in, and people were selling like crazy, and a lot of people lost their life savings, a lot of their retirement monies. But it was something like a display of force, and it was done by angels. Well, on March 10th, I once again tried to tell people, if you have any money to invest, buy today. Because on March 10th, I took down the anactrons that had been set up, and the fear went out of the stock market, and greed came back. Greed set back in. The stock market works on one of two principles, either greed or fear. Fear drives it down, greed drives it up. And on March 10th, the market started back up, and today it's at the 12,000 level. So anybody that invested back on March 10th made some pretty good money. But it was a time for the angels to take a break. For 5.5 months, they had been putting fear into the hearts of all those investors and causing the market to drop. Ironically, a year later, on May 6th, I met with my family minister up in the Bay Area, and just before we had our meeting, it was scheduled for 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Thursday, he went out for lunch. And I hadn't been listening to the radio, but when he came back from lunch and we had the meeting, I was about to tell him about the angels affecting the stock market in the year prior, and he turned white and said, "Do you know what just happened?" I said, "No, what?" He was an investor in the stock market. He'd be listening to the radio during lunch. He said the market just had a flash crash. On May 6th, 2010, the market lost 1,000 points straight down, like that. They called it a flash crash. And then it came back. They had never seen it before. They couldn't explain it. They didn't know what caused it. It blew everybody away. Well, we had a meeting that afternoon in which I told him that the angels caused the market to lose over 7,000 points in the previous year. And on that very day, just minutes before our meeting, the market lost 1,000 points. Well, that's another show of force. That was for his benefit. We have a device here in miniature that is for transporting mortals and angels. This is called an anmortran. It has a center section, which in full size is 6 feet high. Each of these little sections are 2 feet, and since there's 3 of them, that makes it 6 feet high. And then the inside is also 3 by 3, so it's 6 by 3 by 3 on the inside. And then there are little compartments around the outside, tip this over this way, which are 2 feet high and also 3 by 3. Well, this is designed for mortals like you and me but mortals from our galaxy, from the Galactic Federation, to travel between planets in our galaxy, including our planet. And it's made specially for VIPs, for very important people like Admiral Kimo Kuke, who I talk about in another program, and he is at this time in charge of all the ships that are going to be working with us. But the way it works is the Admiral would stand in the center of this device, and then around the 4 compartments on the outside would stand angels. The sides of this would get in the way of the wings, so this way they can stand around him in much the same way as one of the methods of transportation for humans to leave Earth. You're going to have 4 methods of departure, 4 means of getting out of here, and those include going on board the ships or standing in the arms of the angels. And if you have a group of humans that want to go in the arms of angels, they'll be able to go with their clothes on. You will stand in a group, and the angels will be in a circle around you. So if there's 2 humans, there'll be 2 angels, and if there's up to 8 humans, there'll be up to 8 angels, and then they stand around you in a group, and everybody gets transported. Well, this is a Mortran. This is an angel mortal transporter for 1 mortal and 4 angels. And of course, this is a model. This is not the full size. The full size is 6 feet high and 6 feet wide, and then each compartment is for a different purpose. So that's the Mortran. Now this is another one, another model. This is called a no-Antran. Now can you folks guess what that means? This is for 2 immortals. They can be angels or deity. Now remember too that angels don't necessarily have wings. There are some angels that don't have wings. But this is designed for 2 to travel together, and it's got 2 square compartments, you might say, that are 6 feet high as well. These sides are 3 feet, and then the center section is actually 4 feet. And then it has outriggers on the sides, kind of as supporters, because sometimes when you're coming into a world that has gravity, you need to have something to hold on to. So if you're standing on the inside of this, you want to hold on to it, and this outriggers provide that extra support. But this is for immortals that do not have wings. No wings, and the most common type of immortal that we know of is called an angel, and this is a transporter. So it's a no-wing angel transporter, or to shorten that up, no wings becomes just no, angel becomes an, A-N, and transport becomes tran. So this is a no-an-tran, a no-wing angel transporter. But it can also be used by other immortal beings that do not have wings. That's a no-an-tran. Now, let me once again remind everyone, this is a level 3 program, XXX. So consider what will offend you and then act accordingly. Do not watch this program if you're offended by it. So those are some of the devices that I wanted to introduce you to tonight. I have another one, but this one involves a much more, we might say, difficult subject. So here we go. This is definitely our level 3 program. We have some ferocious beings that are going to be joining us. These are the Locusts. So now let's go to Revelation chapter 9, verse 3. Here we are now in chapter 9. This talks about the 5th trumpet and the locusts from the bottomless pit. And let's read all of this. Then the 5th angel sounded, and I saw a star fallen from heaven to the earth. To him was given the key to the bottomless pit. He opened the bottomless pit, and smoke arose out of the pit like the smoke of a great furnace. So the sun and the air were darkened because of the smoke of the pit. Then out of the smoke locusts came upon the earth, and to them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. They were commanded not to harm the grass of the earth, nor any green thing, nor any tree, but only those men who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads. And they were not given authority to kill them, but to torment them for 5 months. Their torment was like the torment of a scorpion when it strikes a man. In those days, men will seek death and will not find it. They will desire to die, and death will flee from them. The shape of the locusts was like horses prepared for battle. On their heads were crowns of something like gold, and their faces were like the faces of men. They had hair like women's hair, and their teeth were like lions' teeth. And they had breastplates like breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like the sound of chariots, with many horses running into battle. They had tails like scorpions, and there were stings on their tails. Their power was to hurt men for 5 months. And they had as a king over them the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, but in Greek he has the name Apollyon. Well, folks, this talks about a furnace with smoke. My wife and I are from the big island of Hawaii. We actually live in the town of Volcano, and it's right next door to Volcano's National Park, and we have a volcano as our neighbor. The name of that volcano is Kilauea, and it is just a few thousand feet from our front door. Well, about 5 years ago, in 2007, Kilauea started dumping out enormous amounts of fumes, sulfur gas, sulfur dioxide, carbon dioxide, and the fumes were carried down towards the southwest off of the Big Island, where the macadamia nut orchards are, the coffee plantations, and the flower orchards are located. All kinds of damage. And it was a bad situation. Well, a volcano is like a furnace, and that smoke might be what those locusts came in. Well, I'm here to tell you that yes, the locust arrived in Hawaii. Now, I need to show you something. Here's our side camera, and the device in which the locust arrived. Let's put the sign over here. Now, those of you that are familiar with my programs, you'll know that a level 3 program is XXX. If you're going to be offended by what I'm telling you, turn it off. Don't watch. But this is level 3, number 4. This is a locust transporter. Now, in the past, I've shown you other transporters. There's one behind me here, this little guy. I showed another program, which is a personal transporter, and all those people that cross in the hot tubs, remember this? Here's a picture. Oops, that's not going to work. Here's a picture of the hot tubs. No, that's too far away. Forget that. But if you cross in a hot tub, you can then come back and you will get a personal transporter. And that's what the other one is. But this is a locust transporter. I'll show you how this works. This is actually a model, but it has a sliding center section. This guy comes up, and when the locust came in, now remember, they're like little horses, and they can't climb in and out of a transporter like we can, like those other ones. This guy has a sliding center section. So after the locust arrived, the little horse, then this guy can be moved up, and, excuse me once again, this isn't sliding as best as I'd hoped. This is a model once again. Then once this is up, then the locust can walk out. And what I had set up were double compartments. There were 2 sections for the locust. There was another one right next to it. And then this whole section slid up and down. And In the case of this model, it's just a one, you might call it a one-holer. But once that went up, then you can pull it back down again and make it ready for the next locust to come in. And we had 3 of these double transporters set up in Hawaii, near the smoke from the volcano, exactly as Revelation described it. And for a period of about a year, many, many, many locusts came in. Now, why do we have locusts? What is their function? Well, let me get out of this guy, move it out of the way. We have had a war. The United States has been involved in a war for the last 9 years. It's called the Iraq War. It was a tragic war. It was based on lies. Thousands of Americans died. Maybe more than 100,000 Iraqis died. And it was all for greed. It was all about money. It was a war that was started by oil men, and it was a waste, a huge waste. A waste of life, a waste of money. It put the United States into bankruptcy. We have trillions of dollars of debt now that we can't pay. And it was all to make a bunch of rich guys richer. Everything in this world is about making rich guys richer. That's what that war was all about. Well, part of the problem was the United States at that time was the last great empire. There was nobody to challenge us. So our leaders felt they could start a war and kill all the people they wanted and get that oil flowing, and nobody could do anything about it because there was nobody more powerful than the United States. Wrong. Well, the good news for most of us is that we're going to get out of here without any problems. We're going to have all these transporters, all these different ways to be transported, and 99.9% of us can leave this world because we have our names in something called the Book of Life. Those of you that have a Bible, I encourage you to whip it out and take a look at what I'm about to read to you. If we go to the book of Revelation, verse 3, number 5, it talks about the Book of Life. In Revelation chapter 3, here's chapter 3, entitled The Dead Church, and we want to go to verse 5. So verse 5 is right here. It says, "He who overcomes shall be clothed in white garments, and I will not blot out his name from the book of life, but I will confess his name before my Father and before his angels." Well, here's the first reference to the book of life in the book of Revelation. Now, the book of life is important because 99% of us are in the book. It's kind of like a giant computer index of all the good people, the people that have not done, you might say, bad things in this life or in past lives. Whenever we do anything that causes pain or injury to other beings, we incur a debt, and we have to clear that debt. It can't be allowed to continue, especially based on where we're going. We're going to be re-entering the galaxy, and we have to have a clean slate to do that. So all those debts have to be cleared. Well, if you don't have any debts, your name is in the book of life. You're good to go. So you'll be able to depart once these sacred sites have been set up and people can start leaving. But if your name is not in the book of life, you cannot depart, and you will have to experience events that are coming for this world. If your name is not in the book of life, you don't get to leave. You have to stay and experience the locusts. The 1%, the 1%ers that all the occupiers are talking about, they're going to get to experience locusts. They will not like experiencing locusts. It will be a bad situation. Now, for those of us that don't cross right away and decide we want to stick around longer, especially if we don't really believe what's happening, there will come a time when you do not want to be in your home. Oh, I can't use this. This chart is similar to the one behind me, And as you can see, it says the safe haven. We have a map of the United States that shows the central part of the country. We're right now down here in Arizona at this end, but if you go up to the next interstate, that is Interstate 40, and it travels all the way across the southern tier of the United States. Up above is Interstate 80, and then it joins Interstate 74 and Interstate 70 that takes you to the eastern seaboard. And then Interstate 81 comes down along the eastern seaboard. And then over in the west, we have US 93 and US 95. Those are the boundaries for what's called the safe haven. Now, all through history, whenever adversaries would have conflicts, it was traditional to provide a safe haven for the non-combatants. If your nation was fighting another nation and you weren't one of the warriors, then it was standard procedure to provide a safe haven for you to go to so you would not be tortured or killed. Well, the United States has been in a war in the Middle East, in Iraq, for 9 years. That war just ended on New Year's Eve last year, 2011. And in that war, more than 100,000 Iraqis were probably killed, hundreds of thousands of Iraqis were probably injured, and millions of Iraqis were made homeless. And the United States did not provide a safe haven for any of those Iraqis. Every Iraqi in Iraq was a combatant. And all the area on the inside of that is called the safe haven. And anybody who is a non-combatant, anybody whose name is in the book of life, who is not to be tortured by the locusts, can go to the safe haven and find food, shelter, clothing, and medical care. The United States is now going to experience what it was like to be a resident of Iraq during the last Iraq War. Except, in the case of the United States, the adversary for the U.S. is, you might say, kindler and gentler, kind and gentle compared to the way the U.S. treated Iraq. And this time the adversary will provide a safe haven for Americans who are non-combatants. If you are not a combatant in this next phase of this war, if you are in the book of life and you have not crossed, you have not left yet, you will be given a place to go called a safe haven, where you will not be tortured by the forces of light and dark that are now going to descend upon the United States. It will be a place where you can go where the locusts will not hurt you, and it's called a safe haven. Now, our God, the one true God, the God of our galaxy, the God of this world, is a loving and caring God. And in this case, the combatants, the people of the United States, the 1%ers that are not in the book of life, are going to be taught a lesson, you might say. But for the rest of us that are not involved, that are not combatants, that are non-combatants, we have a safe place to go called the safe haven. That's one thing that the United States did not provide for the people of Iraq. They had no safe haven, and they suffered. Now remember, if you're in the book of life, you can get out of here. You can cross to Alpha Centuri and go to a safe place. You won't have to be involved in this conflict anymore. You can actually leave our world and go someplace much, much better. But for many reasons, people will not. So if you're still here, you will have a safe haven to go to. Now remember, if you're an American and you're not in the safe haven and hostilities break out and the locusts start doing their torturing, even though you're a non-combatant, you can still be tortured because you're not in the safe haven. If you're in the combat zones, anywhere around the outside of this green area, then you're in the combat zones. And even though you're a non-combatant, even though your name is in the Book of Life, you can still be tortured by the Locusts. So if you're here during that time and you're in the Book of Life, you want to get to the safe haven. Now, once you arrive in the safe haven, you will be given food, water, clothing, and medical care. The adversary of the United States will take care of you, and you will have not only a safe place to go, but you'll have the basics and shelter as well. Food, clothing, medical care, and liquids and water to drink. But when you're finally ready to make that crossing, which you will have to do eventually, then you'll be able to go to this pink line. The pink line is Interstate 15 on the west from Las Vegas up to the intersection of Interstate 70, then Interstate 70 all the way across the country until it intersects with Interstate 64, and then Interstate 64 the rest of the way to Virginia. Along that interstate, there will be sites set up where you can cross. There will be hot tubs and ships and angels that will allow you to make the crossings. And these sites will be set up at intersections, at numbered intersections along those three interstates, Interstates 15, 70, and 64. In another program, I will identify all the intersections where these crossings can take place, where you can go. The advantage of using interstates and intersections is that there's lots of parking. Now remember, there are 300 million people in the United States. Hopefully, half of them will cross when they're first given the opportunity in their local areas, in their cities and towns where they live. But maybe some won't. Maybe 100 million still won't cross. Well, they'll still have their cars, and if they have enough gas, they'll be able to drive to the safe haven. And then, when they do finally decide to cross, they can go to any of these interstates, 70, 15, and 64, and at intersections along those interstates, they can then park their cars and then do the crossings. And should they decide to come back, their cars will be waiting for them in a safe location right there along the interstate, so they can then jump back in their cars and do whatever they want to do. Hopefully go out and recruit more people to make the crossings. Safe haven. This is a ancient concept. Even in Hawaii, we had a place called the Safe Haven. It's called Honaunau over on the Kona side. If your village was overrun by another chief and his people, and they were slaughtering everybody, you could escape to Honaunau, the Safe Haven, and you would not be tortured or killed. It was a safe place to go. So we've now talked about the locusts. Let's go to the next subject. We've had reports not only of earth groanings, but we've had reports of trumpets as well. And these trumpets can be 2 or more, and they sound like they are blowing in harmony. So let's look up Revelation 8:2. Here's chapter 8 of Revelation, the 7th seal, prelude to the 7 trumpets. When he opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. And I saw the 7 angels who stand before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets. Then another angel, having a golden censer, came and stood at the altar. He was given much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense, with the prayers of the saints, ascended before God from the angel's hand. Then the angel took the censer, filled it with fire from the altar, and threw it to the earth. And there were noises, thunderings, lightnings, and an earthquake. So the 7 angels who had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. Then Revelation goes through all these different trumpets. The first trumpet, vegetation was struck. The second trumpet, the seas were struck. The third trumpet, the waters were struck. The fourth trumpet, the heavens were struck. The fifth trumpet, the locusts from the bottomless pit. That's what we just talked about. The sixth trumpet was the angels from the Euphrates. And then the seventh trumpet was the kingdom proclaimed. So that explains the trumpets. Everybody that listens to those earth groanings, not only is going to hear a deep rumbling sound, but they may also hear what sounds like trumpets. Trumpets in harmony. Two or more trumpets? Well, look at Revelation chapter 8, verse 2, and it talks about 7 angels and 7 trumpets. It is happening, folks. We have 10 months left on this planet. The clock is ticking. It's about time for us to get ready to leave. So I hope this program helps to alleviate some of your fears. There is a plan to evacuate us from this earth. 99% of us are going to get out of here anytime we're ready at the blink of an eye, and we have a wonderful place to go to. Alpha Centauri is a beautiful place to start a new adventure because we then get to travel throughout the galaxy. Alpha Centauri will be our, quote, Ellis Island. Those of you that know your American history may remember that during the 1800s and 1900s, up to 400,000 people per year would come into the United States from Europe and be processed right there next to the Statue of Liberty on Ellis Island. And once they were processed, then they were allowed to venture throughout the United States. And for them, it was a great experience. They could take off and go anywhere they wanted in the U.S. Well, the same is going to be for us. You will be able to go to Alpha Centauri, the nearest of all of our sister star systems. It's only 4.2 light years from here, but in astral travel time, it's that fast. You get there just instantly. And then once you're processed on Alpha Centauri, you can venture the galaxy. And we have a gorgeous galaxy. We have places to visit that you could never imagine. And they're going to all be at your disposal. So there's a wonderful plan in place for all of us. And we just have to make the effort to cross. And those crossings are about to start very soon. And in time, they will be everywhere. You'll be able to cross in your local town. And if you don't cross right away and you decide you want to stick around longer, then you'll be able to go to the safe haven and then cross in the sanctuaries, anywhere along these 3 interstates. So there is a plan in place. There's no reason to be fearful. There's no reason to stockpile guns or ammunition or anything lethal, because you don't have to worry about others coming to get your food or your car or whatever you have, because everybody's going to be leaving. And just enjoy life. We only have 9 months left of this world, even less than that. Things are going to start getting more and more strange as time goes by. So enjoy the time we have left. Make ho'oponopono with your family, as we say in Hawaii. Ho'oponopono means to be loving and back in touch. If you have any kind of strife within your family, now's the time to end it, to reestablish all your relationships, and just enjoy the time that we have left here on Earth, because we're about to go somewhere else, and you'll want to have good memories of the time you had here. So at this time, I'd like to reassure you that there are millions, billions, and trillions of beings beyond our world that love us and care about us. And they're going to make sure that we get out of here safely, that we will have a uneventful departure from this world, and there is a plan in the works to get us out of here. So do not be concerned, do not stress out, do not go crazy, don't start doing stupid things, because we're all going to make it. We're all going to be fine. We are very fortunate that we have all these loving beings that are here for our benefit to help us. So at this time, I'd like to reassure you that there are millions, billions, and trillions of beings beyond our world that love us and care about us. And they're going to make sure that we get out of here safely, that we will have a uneventful departure from this world, and there is a plan in the works to get us out of here. So do not be concerned, do not stress out, do not go crazy, don't start doing stupid things, because we're all going to make it. We're all going to be fine. We are very fortunate that we have all these loving beings that are here for our benefit to help us. For those of you that are not in the Book of Life, I sympathize. You have either done something in this life or you've done something in past lives that has kept you out of the Book of Life. There is a way to get back in the book, which will be explained if you ask when the time comes. But for those of you that are not in the book, I want to encourage you to remember 3 magic words. Those words are very simple, and when the time comes, if you can remember those words, you will survive the events that are coming. Those words are, I love God. I love God. The 3 magic words are I love God. Now, you don't have to believe in it. You don't actually have to believe these 3 magic words. Just know what they are. And when the time comes, you will want to say them. They will, in a sense, rescue you from what you're about to go through. You are going to go through some very, very difficult times, but it's necessary. You have debt that you must clear. And in order for you to clear this debt, you have to experience what's coming. But there will come a time, once you have cleared the debt, when you can get out of here. You can join the rest of us that have gone off to Alpha Centuri, but you have to remember those 3 magic words. I love God. If you can remember those 3 magic words, you get to go poof and join the rest of us. So remember just those words and tell others that might not be in the book what those 3 magic words are. You will be very happy you did. So I'd like to wish you all aloha and a hui ho. Until next time.